So, the thing I wanted to talk about today was, does not having to answer to God mean you're an atheist? In Buddhism, there's a lot of different ways to look at Buddhism when it comes to the idea of God, gods, etc. Traditional Buddhism, there are gods, many of them. They're all sort of these spiritual beings. In a lot of the scriptures in Buddhism, gods came to the Buddha for advice. Gods revered the Buddha. The Buddha was asked about God, and the Buddha usually didn't reply about them, or just didn't reply to what they were saying. He didn't. He would always reply with emphasizing suffering as the most important thing. A lot of people, even Buddhists, will say that they are atheists. I would not call myself an atheist. I think that rejecting the idea of God, rejecting the existence of God is not needed. It's not required. But redefining God is what is important. So, no. Well, first let me explain that in Buddhism, it's clear that your salvation comes from yourself. It belongs to you. It is yours to cultivate. It is yours to find. And it can be accomplished by you. You do not have to have God, or a God, be it like a Greek kind of God, or an Indian kind of God, any kind of God. You don't have to answer. God does not have to give you salvation. When you sin, you do not have to answer to God. God isn't writing a book up there with your name in it and saying, that's a sin and this is what you're going to have to pay for. Buddhists will say that they do not look to God for the answer. But that is just because we look to ourselves. We look to others. As a Buddhist, I am looking deep within myself to find salvation. I am doing good deeds towards others to find salvation. I am learning to see ultimate reality to find salvation. And I've talked about that ultimate reality being God. But not a Judeo-Christian personality kind of God. Not a God that is a human, is a person, or acts like a human, or acts a certain way. Being Buddhist doesn't mean you have to not believe in God. It just means you have to look at God with a truth. You have to learn to see God as God is. God gets very redefined. God is not, like I said, sitting up there writing a book with your name in it. So, but what is happening is if you sin, if you do something bad towards another person, that person or another person in defense of that person and so on is going to want justice. And I feel like God's justice is in our sense of justice. So when you sin, God isn't up there saying, recognizing your sin. When you do something bad to another, even if you get away with it, somebody else is either aware of what you did that was bad, or you are. I think it's, I've always stood ground on the fact that even bad people know when they're doing bad things. And if God is going to see your sin in any way or recognize it, it is through the self. And it is through others. So I just don't think that because you do not answer to God as some being in the sky that looks down on you and, judges you, since we're not answering to that sense of God for our salvation or for our sins, it doesn't mean you have to be an atheist. It just means that you have to start seeing God in yourself, seeing God in others. And you won't see an old man in the sky, you won't see a spirit or a soul or a cloud. You see those things in scriptures and in stories that we, tell. But when you really look deeply and you try to find God in yourself and in others and in nature and in all that exists, you don't see, like I said, an old man that's judging you. You see yourself, and you see others, and you see the world around you. You see reality. Reality is God. There's no sense in having to say you're an atheist. It may mean that you have to say, I do not believe that God is some kind of mystical being that is watching and judging or loving or anything out there. You may have to start thinking, God is inside of me. God is in other people, other beings, God is in the sun rising every day and making sure that we're still alive and we're still here. So, even though you don't have to answer to that God, lots of people do bad things and they just totally get away with it. But like I said, people that do bad things know they're doing bad things. They recognize it in themselves. People want justice. People want to be treated correctly. There may be a lot of things that I don't believe about the traditional Buddhist perspective. A lot of things I don't agree with. But I think one thing that Buddhists agree on is that everybody, and it's a saying of the Dalai Lama, which I totally agree with, everybody wants to be happy. And nobody wants to suffer. And so, we all want that. Even the people who do bad things, they don't want to suffer. They don't want to do bad things. They want to be happy. Everybody wants that. Everybody. No matter, even if you're bad, good, atheist, anything. Pagan, like devil worshiper, everybody just wants to be happy. It's just they just don't. Happiness is not properly defined. It is not. It is confused by cravings. It is confused by desires. It is confused by carelessness. People think that because they do bad things, they're going to be happy, and it's just not true. It's just they've lied to themselves. They've been lied to themselves. As a Buddhist, I just get a lot of online comments, I guess, about people saying, well then, you're an atheist. And I'm not an atheist. I don't think you have to be an atheist because you don't feel like everything you do you have to answer to something or someone or some god or some... Sometimes you don't have to answer to anybody except just yourself, and you may do something bad and you just shrug it off. It's no big deal to you, but that doesn't mean you have to be an atheist.